We have a major update on the status of this absent AEW star, and did CM Punk pressure Tony Khan to give him the AEW World title? But first, former AEW Women's Champion Britt Baker would speak with the New York Post this week ahead of the weekend's AEW Revolution pay-per-view, where she gave her thoughts on the potential AEW debut of IWGP Women's Champion Mercedes Moné, who has long been speculated to become All Elite. Baker would reveal that this is something that she hopes to see happen, and noted, "It's weird to see now that she's out in the wild. She's not completely inaccessible in a way. These are very realistic matchups that could happen, and I think the world is ready to see Mercedes Moné let out of the cage. What is she gonna do now? I hope and pray that someday we see her in some capacity in AEW. And if by chance I could be in the connection too, I would be very, very for that." And speaking of AEW and its women's division, Tony Khan would take part in a media call ahead of this weekend's Revolution pay-per-view, where he was asked about the company's recent trademark filing for the term All Elite Women. Khan would be asked if this would be the name of an all-female show somewhere down the line, with him noting, "I would love to have that show be a show that gets picked up. It is an idea I had for a show and something I would love to do, All Elite Women, and that's why I filed the trademark. I think it's a good idea. We have a great women's roster and I would love to utilize them as much as possible. Anytime we can develop more programming to feature our roster, it's something that is a great opportunity for the company and the wrestlers. In the case of the women's locker room, there are a number of really deserving talents and people we feature on TV regularly, and people I'd like to feature more. That was the idea behind All Elite Women. That's still an idea, and I think it would be a great thing if it ever gets picked up." Finn Balor would appear on WWE The Bump this week, where he revealed some potential future plans for the Judgment Day faction. Balor would tease that after WrestleMania in April, the group will begin to see some new members join, with him noting, "We are always planning. The Judgment Day are always planning. We're always plotting. We're always scheming. I'm always texting with Damian. We have a group chat with me, Damian, Rhea, and Dom. We're plotting. We're figuring things out. And trust me, once we get Mania behind us, the Judgment Day will be expanding." If you could add one wrestler to Judgment Day, who would it be? Personally, the name Jay White immediately sprung to mind when I watched this interview, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now let's get to a couple of stories coming out of the return edition of Ring of Honor Television from last night, which was the first episode of the Tony Khan era. The show would pit New Japan World TV Champion Zack Sabre Jr. against Blake Christian with the title on the line. During the match, Zack would send a message to longtime rival Bryan Danielson, somebody he was originally set to face last year at Forbidden Door, although injury would see the American Dragon replaced by a debuting Claudio Castagnoli. Sabre Jr. would declare into the camera that he is the best technical wrestler in the world and not Bryan, a tease that the match could be coming in the near future. This isn't the first time Zack has taken shots at Dragon since the cancelled match, with it happening multiple times at New Japan Pro Wrestling events and media scrums. AEW star, or the now former AEW star, Eddie Kingston would get the internet talking this week when he would declare that he is quitting All Elite Wrestling, leading to some questioning if this is a work or a shoot. Of course, the promo turned out to be part of a storyline, as he would appear on Ring of Honor TV last night to declare himself as an independent contractor when confronting ROH World Champion Claudio Castagnoli, with his next challenger seemingly now confirmed. The match will likely main event the upcoming Supercard of Honor pay-per-view on March 31st, which goes down on WrestleMania weekend, as is tradition. Following his WWE departure in mid-2021, Wyndham Rotunda, better known as Bray Wyatt, began work on a horror movie alongside special effects artist Jason Baker, as well as writer Rob Fee. Speaking with Alistair McGeorge of Metro this week, Baker would provide an update on the status of the production, noting that it is on hold, at least for now, and Jason would reveal, "I was working with Bray and Rob Fee, and then WWE hired 2/3 of the people working on it, and they started slamming me with work. It's not dead, it's just we're all working over at WWE now. I'm sure we'll eventually get around to it. We were getting close, and then he started talking with Hunter, and then Hunter hired Rob. It was like, shit, you guys aren't gonna have any time to shoot a movie because we're all gonna be busy." Then Bray came back, he's like, "Well, I need you to make a bunch of stuff." I'm like, "Well, when are you gonna shoot a movie if we're all busy with WWE?" It's not a bad thing, this is where he should be. I'm sure we'll get around to making that movie eventually, but let's get him back where he needs to be, and that's in WWE. AEW standout Ricky Starks would recently be spotted backstage at WWE's Royal Rumble event to show support for friend and former colleague Cody Rhodes, with this inevitably getting the internet talking. This week, Starks would speak with Stephanie Chase, where he would clear up the intentions behind the move and said, "It was important to me because that's my friend. That's a guy who has helped me through a neck injury. That's a guy who had helped me out through my career even before AEW when I was an extra at SmackDown. This guy talked to me and gave me advice when he didn't have to. That's what's important. I don't give a shit, and I want everyone who's watching this to do a verbatim. I don't give a shit if there's some tribalism from fans. I don't care if someone from my company or over there thinks it's a bad look. I don't give a fuck. That is my friend. One thing about me, I'm genuinely going to be a friend no matter what, and if you ride for me, I'm gonna ride for you. So it's important that I go there and see a guy who is ultimately on the biggest chapter of his career." Luchador Commander would make his AEW debut this past Wednesday as part of the Face of the Revolution ladder match, although he would ultimately fall short, with it being won by Powerhouse Hobbs. According to the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Commander wasn't always in line for the match, with AEW President Tony Khan originally wanting to bring in AAA Mega Champion Hijo Del Vikingo, a move that ultimately fell through. The Observer also adds that WWE have interest in the recent debutant Commander, with the double report noting, "Tony Khan wanted El Hijo Del Vikingo to debut in the ladder match, but he wasn't available, so the office asked for Commander. Commander, who debuted on Dynamite in the ladder match with no build-up at all, was not under contract when put on the show and is very much on the WWE radar. Commander actually is under contract with the KAOZ promotion in Mexico, and not sure how that would impact his ability to actually sign with WWE or AEW." And before we get to the rest of today's stories, be sure to subscribe to Wrestle Planet if you haven't done so already, as we aim to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And also head over to Wrestle Planet Gaming if you're into wrestling video games, ahead of the launch of both AEW Fight Forever and WWE 2K23. But with that said, let's get to the rest of the video. Absent AEW star Jeff Hardy would finally receive his sentence earlier this week for his June DUI arrest that saw him suspended from All Elite Wrestling pending legal action and rehabilitation. Jeff would ultimately avoid prison time despite being sentenced to 38 days, with this being avoided thanks to credit for time already served in jail. Speaking on his Extreme Life podcast this week, Jeff's brother Matt Hardy would provide a positive update for fans of the Hardy Boys and said, "The first thing Jeff did whenever he got the opportunity was travel to Florida and stayed 90 days and did an extensive rehabilitation stint. Really intense work on himself. Even after those 90 days, he was doing outpatient where he was going every week. He probably did 170 days altogether when it was said and done on treatment on himself, being there and trying to rehabilitate himself and get to the bottom of this. Why do you have issues? What causes this?" It's one of those things. My brother, obviously, he's had so many addiction problems through the years, but he's never been this specific and in detail to try and work through it so much, really commit himself to this. The reason I say it'll be different this time is because he went into it with a different mentality and he's never been this scared before. There was a lot of talk where they wanted him to go to prison for months and do this. Whilst AEW's initial statement said that Jeff Hardy would need to go to rehab before a return was considered, which he has done, no talk of an AEW comeback has taken place thus far, with Matt adding, "That hasn't been talked about. Will it happen? Maybe, maybe not. That is something that hasn't been talked about at all at this point, and it certainly wasn't going to be like his court case is done, he shows back up on AEW Dynamite." Next, we have a report from the Wrestling Observer newsletter regarding rumors that CM Punk pressured Tony Khan to win the AEW World Championship match at Double or Nothing last year that saw him defeat Hangman Page for the title. The rumor, which was ironically started by Wrestling Observer's Ryan Fredericks, would be squashed in the Observer this week, where Dave Meltzer revealed, "The story going around that Punk was originally going to lose to Adam Page at last year's Double or Nothing but pressured Tony Khan to change the finish is not true. Punk was always winning that match. Khan wanted the title on Punk months earlier, and that wasn't Punk's doing or pressuring." And before you go, make sure you check out my predictions for AEW Revolution 2023.